The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
you're now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Yep. That's right. All right. So I decided to just let that play. That's what happens when I have YouTube open at the same time. There's a 30-second delay between YouTube and the live show. And so anyway, welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Monday, April 11, 2016. It is tax week. And if you're like me, you will be scrambling to take care of your taxes someday this week, possibly right in or around the 14th, I think is my deadline. But anyway, welcome to the show. A lot going on. Thanks for joining us. A lot of topics. Let's see what's on my my list of topics for tonight. If you're watching my YouTube, you can see that I wrote my notes down on my kids' homework. I normally use some software for this, but I kind of felt really old school today. Wanted to feel the paper in my hand. So instead of using my online subscription, I decided to just go buy the paper and read it that way. And then I just felt like writing. So gets the same thing done. Thank you for joining us. Enough with the preliminaries, all the stuff at the beginning. I've got so much to talk about. I really don't know where to jump in. So let's start with the obvious stuff. Let's talk about Democracy Spring. And I say it's obvious, but the reality of it is that it's not really getting as much coverage as one would expect, with hundreds of people being arrested at the Capitol, the nation's capital. So many people arrested at the nation's capital that they ran out of room to place them all in jail, and then they stopped arresting people. That's like a record number. They arrested so many people that they ran out of jail cells. Well, not necessarily jail cells, but holding places. They couldn't hold them all. This is an effort led, if I'm not mistaken, I know Cenk Uygur is a major part of it. I don't want to say that it's his campaign, because I really didn't see anywhere where it was Cenk Uygur's campaign, but I know that he's like the spearhead of it. I know he's out there on the front line, and I know he was also arrested today participating. A lot of people were arrested today. A lot of people have committed to being a part of this. It started off as a march, a 140-mile march from the Liberty Bell in Philadelphia all the way to Washington, D.C. This week is comprised of sit-in, silent protest, and civil disobedience, demanding the core purpose of it is demanding really the overturn of Citizens United, but I feel like it's bigger than that. It's just a statement towards democracy in general and the propensity in our democracy to have undue influence from billionaires and corporations, the ability of legal bribery. I think David K. Johnston in his book, Perfectly Legal, I think he used some of that terminology, where it's a system of legal bribery. We give you lobbying dollars, we give you campaign contributions, and you return to us in kind for the things that we're interested in. And I don't want to jump into the commentary so much, but I want to drop this here. Is that we're at a really precarious time in the left-leaning, progressive-leaning Democratic Party circles, because more people are willing to justify or to give the okay to campaign contributions, particularly from Wall Street, because Hillary Clinton is the recipient thereof, right? They're willing to justify it because they have to, at any cost, justify their support for Hillary Clinton So if Hillary Clinton is taking campaign contributions from Wall Street and from corporations and from the NRA and from lobbying partners of the NRA, if she's willing to do it, then it must be okay. But if it's not okay, for Republicans to do it, then why would it be okay for Democrats to do it? But before I get into that commentary, let me just go back and give you a little more information on it. It's actually the campaign director for Democracy Spring is Kai Newkirk. They have put together a massive movement of people who have committed to not only walk that 140 miles, which they've already done, they've also committed to be arrested. If you saw the pictures from it today, it is a beautiful sight. I was shocked by the number of, and it's just the old fashioned, you can call me misogynistic, you can call me chauvinist, whatever, but it really spoke volumes to me to see older women being arrested by the dozens on behalf of our democracy. It moved me. It really touched me because I saw it was mostly older white women, but I did see a couple of women of color in there. And I saw one lady who actually looked like my mother in the picture. And I'm like, look at their faces. Look at the people who are committed to our democracy and willing to be arrested. And again, I'll hold the commentary for a second. Let me just give a little more background on it. So the purpose of it, again, is to fight back against this legalized bribery, to fight back against this system, to demand one vote, one person, one citizen, one vote. And Cenk Uygur was there. He was arrested from the Young Turks. Everybody, if you listen to me, you already know who Cenk Uygur is. He was arrested, and I listened to a couple of his clips today, discussing Democracy Spring and the commitment that they have all made to this movement, trying to rekindle or trying to maintain that energy that really began with Occupy Wall Street. Let's just be real. Like, Occupy Wall Street really changed the game, and I think a lot of people. I think that a lot of people are dismissive of Occupy Wall Street because it may not be as efficacious today as it was. But that spirit is still there. That energy, that drive, that commitment, that willingness to shut stuff down is still there. And Cenk Uygur was there. He was arrested. And it really speaks volumes to because of not Cenk, but because of all of the people that were there willing to be arrested. And I guess the question is, what is their main purpose? According to their website, their main purpose is our collective demand to Congress is that it take immediate action to end the corruption of big money in politics and ensure free and fair elections in which every American has an equal voice. We have identified at least 4 reform bills that are already pending before Congress as exemplary actions that can be taken. These include proposed legislation that would implement robust small donor citizen-funded elections, combat voter suppression, and empower citizens with universal suffrage. It will also introduce a constitutional amendment overturning Citizens United. So basically, everything that I just said at the top, that's exactly what they're standing for. And that's what they are. That's what they're fighting for. Democracy Spring is being organized by a growing coalition of over 100 organizations. This is, again, from their website, including a steering committee made up of 99 Rise, Avaz, Democracy Matters, Energy Action Coalition, the Retail, Wholesale, and the Department Store Union, RWDSU, the United States Student Association. We are united by these principles of unity. You can, there's a whole list of organizations. I also saw, what's my dude name from Dream Defenders? I'm so horrible with names. I really wish I hadn't tried to, let me get, what is my boy's name from Dream Defenders? He's always on the scene making things happen. Somebody please tweet me with his name. Philip Agnew. That's his name. It came back to me. Philip Agnew. I lied. It didn't come back to me. I just Googled it. But still, Philip Agnew, he was there representing probably representing himself, but I'm sure he also represents the Dream Defenders, because what they're fighting for in Democracy Spring is very significant. I would encourage anyone interested to go to their website and figure out how interested you are and what level of commitment you're willing to give, particularly if you're in that area or you have the ability to get down to that area. Go to their website and read up on them. But I have to say that the commitment to overturning Citizens United and correcting the problem of money in politics, that really is at the core. That's the core problem in our system. And what we don't realize is that, or maybe you do, maybe I'm just slow to the party. But what many people don't realize is that Democrats benefit off of this too, just as much, maybe give or take a few percentage points in dollars. They benefit off of this. Media organizations benefit off of this. Campaign staffers benefit off of Citizens United. The money is overwhelmingly going to media. The money is going to staffers, high-level staffers, more so than their interns and people volunteering, obviously. But it's entrenched in the system. And one thing Cenk said today in an interview, he said that you have to realize this is something that's going to have to come from the state level up. It's going to have to be a movement that is co-signed by the state level, because everyone on the federal level is in office by virtue of this corruption. So we cannot expect people who are there by, and don't get me wrong. Am I saying that every politician that takes campaign dollars is corrupt? No, but I am saying they are participating in a corrupt system. Who said it? David Sirota, I don't know how to pronounce Sirota. He said that I think he was at a bar. He was at a bar and he gave the bartender money. And he said, the fact that the bartender gave me a beer in return doesn't represent quid pro quo. Making a mockery of this idea that all of these corporations would give people money with no expectation of something in return. The entire system is corrupt. It is broken. It is broken. The hardest part about it, though, is that there are a lot of people who are telling us in one breath that it's broken, and in another breath, they are beneficiaries of this broken system. When you look at the amount of cash that is spent in media outlets, in every election cycle, you would realize that MSNBC, all the way down to your local stations that are lucky enough to get all of the contributions in exchange for ad time, they are all direct beneficiaries of this system. And so we're not just fighting against the Republican Party on this. We're fighting against Democrats. We're fighting against the establishment. We're fighting against the media establishment. Everyone who benefits from these dollars, they are who we are fighting against. Doesn't make them evil, but it does make them complicit with the system. Or as my friend Patrick likes to say, not just complicit, but also co-conspirators. All right. Let's talk about something else. I also want to talk about, I'm going to get to Bill de Blasio's and not just Bill de Blasio, but Bill de Blasio and Hillary Clinton's shenanigans in a minute. I want to talk about the Wyoming results and a clip from 510. I'm not taking calls until 9:30, so give me 15 minutes. And everyone else who's blown up the nines will take calls at 9:30. So hold your thoughts and your comments until then. Let's talk about the caucus results out of Wyoming, I believe. Yeah, Wyoming. All right. So not only in Wisconsin did Bernie Sanders thump Hillary Clinton. Let me pull the Wisconsin results up as well. But he thumped her in Wyoming over the weekend. What was it? About 13 points. Let me do the math. So 11 points. At the end of the day, it was about 11 points that he thumped Hillary Clinton. Morning Joe did a great segment this morning, surprisingly great, about the corruption in the system for Democrats, as well as the overall system. but Democrats in general, and as much as I would love to play that clip for you, MSNBC is rather draconian in their copyright infringements. So I can't play it for you this morning, today, but I can describe it to you, where he went on a terrific rant about how Democrats always complain about voter suppression, particularly as it comes from the Republican Party, which it does. It absolutely does come from the Republican Party. But there's also a baked-in form of suppression right inside of the Democratic Party, and it's called the superdelegates. And only in this world would you see a result where Bernie Sanders can win by such a large percentage and end up coming out with fewer delegates than Hillary Clinton. And to some people, this just makes sense, right? So 18 delegates up for grab in Wyoming. Bernie Sanders came about with fewer than Hillary Clinton, even though he beat her by 12 points at the time. I think it's 11 points right now. And when you put it in context of Debbie Wasserman's comment saying that the purpose of superdelegates is, in fact, to push back against a grassroots movement, you realize just how broken this system is. All right, 510. Not really sure who you are, but I asked you to hold on. So let's do that. You realize exactly how broken this system is. You know, it's there for the express purposes of pushing back against a grassroots movement, which means it's there for the express purposes of pushing back against the will of the people, because that's what grassroots is. So Bernie Sanders got 7 points, 7 delegates, and Hillary Clinton got 11 delegates, despite the fact that Bernie Sanders won by 11 points. And this is exactly how Debbie Wasserman Schultz and the Democratic establishment want it. As much as we're fighting very vigorously, as much as people are fighting very vigorously to get Bernie Sanders elected, the real fight is undoing the baked-in advantages that the establishment has given itself in one of our two major parties, in both of the major parties, particularly in the party that benefits off of populism, the language of populism, rather, the party that benefits off of the idea that it's there for the common person, and then you realize that at the end of the day, it's not. And what else is disturbing about this is how willing people are to use this system when it's in their favor and fight against the system when it's not in their favor, which is why there has to be some underlying fundamental guidelines. There have to be some underlying fundamental principles that guide you. Otherwise, you would find yourself in 2008 fighting against this superdelegate system. And then in 2016, because it's in the favor of the candidate that you like, you're fighting for this superdelegate system. If it was bad in 2008 when it was going against President Obama, then Senator Obama, then it's just as bad in 2016 when it's going in favor of helping Hillary Clinton. Because you had some people who supported Obama in 2016 against Hillary Clinton, and now they're supporting Hillary Clinton. A lot of people, that's no surprise to anybody. But in 2008, a lot of them were crying foul. But in 2016, they look at the delegate system and say, oh, that's just the rules. It's not a rigged system. That's just the rules, and we need to abide by the rules. And so I said that to say this, that even though we're fighting and people are fighting to get Bernie Sanders elected, there needs to be an equally vigorous fight to break the strong stranglehold that the establishment has on the populist movement. I don't really care about the fact that they have a stranglehold in the Democratic Party. it has to break the stronger. We have to break the stranglehold that they have, being the de facto representative of populism in the United States of America. That's the problem. The problem is they get to use the language of populism and then use the structured impediments and the structured rigging of the system to further embolden the establishment. They get it both ways. They get to cry that they are for the people and they're for the middle class, but in the same time, they're doing things, neoliberal economics, they're doing things in favor of big corporations to the detriment of the middle class. I mean, the Democratic Party has it made. When you think about it, they can feign disgust against the Republicans for being in favor of big business, all the while they're simultaneously in favor of big business to the detriment of labor. Then they get to say that they are the party of the people, and they get the force of grassroots without ever having to capitulate to grassroots. Right? They get to say we are the populist party, but at the same time, they get to use super delegates to make sure that the establishment has its way above the populist movement. The Democrats have it made. They get to simultaneously use identity politics to suppress a grassroots movement while crying foul against identity politics against the Republican Party, while simultaneously committing some of the worst and the most egregious examples of microaggressions and macroaggressions. Let me make that one plain. Hillary Clinton's campaign gets the benefit off of crying racism against Bernie Sanders while simultaneously using a colored people joke today or this weekend, and simultaneously Bill Clinton having his Sister Soldier moment part 2 by putting Black Lives Matter in check and then almost apologizing, but not quite apologizing. Man, they got their cake and they eat it too. Only in the Democratic Party. Only in the Democratic Party, because if you look at some of the things that they do and they accomplish, there is no way in hell the Republican Party could ever get away with that. Ever. And I'm going to talk about de Blasio in a second, but I think I just want to shine a light on the fact that they really and sincerely, I swear for God, 510, I appreciate you, but if you call one more time before 9:30, stop blowing my line up. Everybody can call at 9:30. 9:30, ladies and gentlemen. What time? 9:30. 9:30, I'm taking calls. Damn green light popping up in my eye every 30 seconds. They get to benefit off of the idea of populism while simultaneously suppressing populism. Just like, let me show you another comparison that I think you might identify with more. Just like conservatives get to cry about being oppressed, their religion being oppressed, while simultaneously doing the oppressing based on religion. You guys understand? You understand that what is it? Hypocrisy. There's no better word than hypocrisy. And that's what you see in the Wyoming. Let me come full circle. That's what you see. You see the populist sentiment, the popular vote in that state says that Bernie Sanders crushed Hillary Clinton. But because of the way our system is set up, Hillary Clinton walks away with 4 more delegates than Bernie Sanders. Only in America. And even though the Republican Party doesn't directly benefit or have the control of super delegates, they have their qualms too. They have their problems. They're going to go to a contested convention. They're going to go to really. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about Republicans tonight. I'll talk about Republicans tomorrow night. I'll tell you about Paul Ryan and his Paul Ryan is running for president, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, the Democratic Party, this is atrocious. So this is what you do. Instead of feeling frustrated and thinking that your vote doesn't count, Get involved on the level where your actions count more than even your vote. Get involved in your local party, get involved in your local precinct, get involved on the county level, help change the rules. And I don't even think it's I was going to say become a super delegate, but to be honest with you, that system needs to be broken, not just co-opted. That system needs to be broken. All right. All right, let me talk about something else. Let's talk about, I'm going to get to, I promise you I'm going to get to color people because I'm going to play that clip. I want to talk about something that happened with Bernie Sanders. Two things that happened with Bernie Sanders over the weekend. One on yesterday, Bernie Sanders was in an interview and they asked Bernie Sanders about Hillary Clinton's lead in the popular vote. And Bernie Sanders pointed out that the majority of her wins have come in the South. You would have believed, you would have thought that Bernie Sanders just outright called, yep. You would have thought Bernie Sanders had outright just said, F the South. Everybody in the South ain't worth nothing. You would have thought that Bernie Sanders said, you know, the South is predominantly black, or the majority of the Democratic support in the South comes from black people. So therefore, Bernie Sanders is saying that screw black people, we don't need them. There are a lot of pages of ink spilled over what Bernie Sanders said in regards to the South. There were dozens and hundreds of tweets over what Bernie Sanders said about the South. Now, let's unpack the frivolousness, the fatuousness of this faux outrage. Number one, the South is overwhelmingly the property of the Republican Party. Yes, I know Florida, Virginia, and North Carolina are, well, Florida and Virginia are solidly purple and they could swing either way. Yes, but those are not the only two states in the South. You take Georgia and you take Texas and you have more electoral votes than you do in Florida and Virginia. Boom. Georgia and Texas. People are saying, oh, they're getting ready to swing blue. Okay, if you really believe that they're getting ready to swing blue, then let's see how much money the Democratic Party puts into Texas and into Georgia. Let's see in this election how much they put. If they are so in love with the South, let's see how much money the DNC is going to put into Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. Because if it's so important to you, such that you want to feign all of this outrage over Bernie Sanders, then you damn well better be putting money in there such that you have a competitive edge instead of throwing all of your dollars into the swing states. And I'm not talking about the money that's going to trickle down for local elections. I'm talking about your presidential election. How much money are you going to put into Texas, into Mississippi out of your coffers designated for the presidential race? Because otherwise, you're just using this as another way to feign outrage at Bernie Sanders. Because you know what? This is what I realize about their criticisms of Bernie Sanders. They have to every single day give their supporters some red meat for them to hate Bernie Sanders. They have to. It's just like the team Hillary Clinton being run primarily by David Brock. This iteration of it, right? This public and social presence of Hillary Clinton's campaign is being probably managed by David Brock because his stink is all over it. They have to do and behave exactly like Republicans do and behave by constantly every single day feeding as much red meat to their base as possible to keep them from ever coming up from air. Every day it's about Bernie Sanders is the most disgusting misogynist ever, or he's the most disgusting racist ever. And every day he's doing something that's so terrible that we just can't believe that he's even in this race. Oh my God, Bernie Sanders hasn't released his tax returns. He's got to be the most evil person in the world because he said something about the South, about her wins predominantly coming from the South, when they know full and well that all of the states that they celebrated Hillary Clinton winning, she will not win in the South in the general election. Maybe Florida if she gets to the general election. Maybe Florida. Because you have to understand the way Barack Obama won. There's a lot of B's. We got a lot of presidents with B's in their names. The way Barack Obama won, particularly in 2012, but in 2008 as well, the way he won was by virtue of such an increase of the African-American vote. And as much as people are trying to make it seem like the African-American vote is locked up for Hillary Clinton, you do realize that a lot of them are just not going to vote. Not for Hillary Clinton. A lot of people who came out and voted for Barack Obama were first-time voters and probably won't vote again, particularly for someone who is as establishment as Hillary Clinton. Because contrary to popular belief, I know they're conservative black people. I do know, but there are a lot of left-leaning, progressive, almost full-blown socialists. And when I say socialist in this regard, I mean Hugo Chavez socialist, like all the way left African Americans who came out and supported Barack Obama that are not going to come out and support Hillary Clinton. So even though Florida is up for grabs, you do realize that she does not have the baked advantages, with the exception of them running against Donald Trump, right? If she runs against Donald Trump, then fine. But this whole fake outrage about Bernie Sanders and him dismissing the South, the DNC has always after 1964, they gave up on the South. And you can tell by the money that they're going to put in this coming election. Look at the money that they put in and tell me if they give one rat's ass about some of those southern states that are not swing states. And so the reality of it is they are only concerned with southern swing states. They don't have this newfound love for all of the South. No. Because they know they could throw in $10 million into Mississippi, which is a small media network, right? Media region, and still lose Mississippi. They're not going to put that money in Mississippi. So all this faux outrage. And Bill Mon1 on Twitter, let me go back to his tweet because he said it so brilliantly. He said it better than I could. Because I want to show you the hypocrisy, and I want to show you this daily hypocrisy with which they hit Bernie Sanders. He said, Bill Mon1 said, "You don't understand. Arguing Bernie only wins white states is perfectly okay. But arguing that Hillary Clinton depends on Southern votes is evil." That's the game. That's the game. Because all along, they have been dismissing Vermont, Wyoming, Wisconsin. They even dismiss Hawaii. They dismiss every single state that Bernie Sanders wins as a white state. That's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But if Bernie Sanders even says or alludes to the fact that Hillary Clinton's wins are coming from the South, i.e., she's not going to win them in the general election, then all of a sudden Bernie Sanders is the worst person in the world. And I'm only going to talk about this other one real quick, and then I'm going to take this call. And then 510, I'll unblock you. You could call back. The whole thing with the Vatican. And actually, no, I want to call names. What's her name? Margaret Archer. Let's see if I remember that name correctly. God, dog it. If there's ever a name I remembered that one. So, Bernie Sanders got invited to the Vatican to speak on creating a more just economic society. He did not get invited by the Pope to come meet with the Pope, but he did get an invitation from the Vatican to come speak at this conference. A worker for the same portion of the Vatican, here it is, the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences. Margaret Archer, who's the president of the Pontifical Academy of Social Scientists, says that Bernie Sanders committed a tremendous dishonor by inviting himself. Turns out Margaret Archer is a direct supporter of Hillary Clinton, right? Nobody's going to tell you that. She's a supporter of Hillary Clinton, number one. Number two, her boss said that Margaret Archer knows that she's lying, knows that this invitation came from his offices. Bernie Sanders produced the document. He got invited by the Vatican. He did not get invited by the Pope. Now, yes, Bernie Sanders went on The View, and whatever, I can't remember her name, she said, oh, you got invited by the Pope. And Bernie Sanders said yes. End of the world. Oh my God. Bernie Sanders conflated the Vatican with the Pope and the Pope with the Vatican, and he just said yes. He must absolutely be Satan incarnate. I mean, Bernie Sanders is the most dishonorable, dishonest bastard we've ever met. How could he ever run for president when he can conflate the Vatican with the Pope and the Pope with the Vatican? Just another example of the daily outrage they have to feed you. And when I say they, let me be expressly specific. The Democratic establishment, the media establishment, and Team Hillary Clinton, they have a need to feed you daily outrage against Bernie Sanders in order to make Hillary Clinton look better, one, and in order for the conversation never to be forwarded so that you would ever consider what Bernie Sanders is saying. In other words, they keep you so mad you won't give them an honest look. And that's the game they will forever play. That's the game they play with the Republican Party, knowing full and damn well some of their policies are identical to what the Republican Party would do. I'm sure there's 100 other things I could say about that, but let me take this caller. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Man, it's PJ. Sorry for blowing up your phone lines a little bit.
No problem. It wasn't just you. It was a lot of people. I had to block a couple because it just kept popping up. But anyway, that's besides the point. What's going on, man?
All right. Sort of on the topic of Hillary. It's obvious you've been paying attention to a lot more elections than I have. This would be my first one. But I want your sincere opinion about this. And this is a question about Hillary, but do your best to stop yourself from inputting bias into this, because I'm honestly curious how this plans to happen.
Okay.
Hillary says a lot about, especially when regarding Bernie Sanders, like as soon as she gets the nomination, she'll unite the Democratic Party against whatever Republican opponent she has in the general election. This is assuming she gets the nomination. What I'm trying to understand, and again, this isn't me like being snarky, but as we go on, she keeps doing these rather dishonest tactics and statements from herself and her staff.
Yep.
She keeps saying like he's a misogynist. She says that she suggested he was more corporate than her because he had more time in Congress than her. She's constantly breaking the rules, her and Bill, with regards to lobbying at polling places and in the New York subway. All of this stuff. It's obvious she's not only pragmatic but shrewd and opportunist. But all that stuff will certainly not win the hearts of the people that she hopes to unite come November. So I'm trying to understand. Let me understand. How exactly do you think, if at all possible, she'll win the hearts of the people and unite the Democratic Party when she's being outright comic book villainous with how she's trying to get above Sanders?
I'm looking for the article now. Oh, here it is in the Boston Globe. Great question. Let me take it off air because there's a lot of people jumping in this conversation.
No problem, man.
857-600-0518. You guys can join the conversation. And I'm getting ready to talk about Bill de Blasio. But to answer your question, she has only one hope, in my honest opinion. This is not my biased opinion. Yes, I'm biased. Okay. You just reminded me of something. Before I talk about this, do me a favor, folks. Never say that Benjamin Dixon is not biased, because I am. I'm totally biased to the left. I'm further left than Bernie Sanders. So don't say I'm not biased. I do try to be objective and I do try to be fair. Now I'm going to be objective and I will be fair, and I'm going to try to set aside my bias against Hillary Clinton to give you a nice, objective, fair analysis of what this caller just asked. All right. Now, that being said, Hillary has one hope, and that is for Donald Trump to be the nominee. That's it. Well, that's her best hope. She has another hope that I don't think she realizes, and that's if Ted Cruz becomes the nominee. Because if Ted Cruz becomes the nominee, I will do my best to convince every single one of you that Hillary Clinton is the best thing since sliced bread, because I will never, ever sit back and allow somebody like Ted Cruz, who I feel is far worse, infinitely worse than Hillary Clinton and infinitely worse than Donald Trump, because he takes all of the bigotry of Donald Trump, all of the hatred of Donald Trump. He takes all the neoliberalism of Hillary Clinton and magnifies it, and takes all of the neoconservative foreign policies and magnifies it. And he adds on top of that religious zealotry. So for everyone who's saying don't draw false equivalencies, I'm telling you now, I've been warning you, you better not hope Ted Cruz becomes the nominee, or else you would stop watching my show, and you're just going to have to stop watching my show, because Ted Cruz to me is the Manchurian candidate for bigoted evangelicalism. Now, but that's not what the caller asked. The caller asked, how will she unite the party? She will unite the party for other people if Donald Trump becomes the nominee, because everyone feels like Donald Trump is the second coming of Satan, right? That he's Satan's spawn. I really could care two shits about Donald Trump. He doesn't scare me. Racism has never scared me because I lived it all my life. I know no more than any other Republican. I'm sorry. Donald Trump doesn't scare me any more than any other Republican, so they can't use Donald Trump against me, but they will use Donald Trump for identity politics 101. If Donald Trump becomes the nominee, then yes, I think Hillary Clinton can unite enough people, not the party. That's the big difference. It won't be the party. It won't be people to the far left. It will be people who are afraid of Donald Trump, including some Republicans. So it's not going to be about uniting the party. It's going to be about Hillary Clinton cobbling together a coalition to fight back against Donald Trump, which I think is going to be easy because people fall prey to identity politics very easily. And the reason I say it like that is because a lot of people won't see Ted Cruz as the same way I see him. A lot of people don't see Ted Cruz as the greater threat of the two in terms of if he actually got in office. And a lot of people don't see John Kasich as the threat that he really is. Hillary Clinton will lose to John Kasich, I tell you that. She would lose to John Kasich because John Kasich is just as bigoted in his policies, but he's got a nice personality. She won't be able to cobble together a coalition to beat John Kasich. She can do it against Donald Trump, and I would help her do it against Ted Cruz. Full disclosure. I hope that answered your question. But in terms of people that she's playing this game against, I don't know. I was chatting with Tom Hartman on Twitter today, and some of the tactics that they're using are beyond the pale. And I just don't see, I see if they go further with this idea of, what did they say? Destroy, defeat, disqualify, and then worry about unifying the party. If they continue down that road, I just don't see them being able to get any progressives, not percentage wise, not a meaningful substantive percentage wise in the fall. I don't. Their only hope will be for Donald Trump to win, or Ted Cruz, because then I will launch my own political crusade against Ted Cruz. Sorry. Hope I don't. If I disappoint you, I hope you understand. The world I come from, I know Ted Cruz, and I know him well. I know he's more dangerous than anybody else running right now, hands down, no questions asked. Period. Because he adds that fervor, that religious zealotry that is going to be so much more damaging. John Kasich is dangerous, but he doesn't have that religious zealotry. He's not going to try to wage a crusade against Islam. He'll just wage a crusade against your rights. This is a screwed up election, folks. The more I talk about it, the more I realize our choices are like, God dang. Caller, you live on the air. Then I got to talk about Bill Clinton. What's up? Bill de Blasio. What's your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, man, it's Bryce. What's going on?
What's going on, Bryce? What's happening?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that you just said, because Cruz he is more dangerous. Because, they're all dangerous except Bernie, but Cruz is more dangerous because he'll start World War 3, 4, 5.
And he'll do it in the name of Jesus, man.
Yeah, he'll go crazy. Trump will probably cause more terrorism in America. Hillary will be the status quo, and of course Bernie will be revolutionary that we all need. And Bernie is doing a good job, and I still think he's going to win. I still believe it to the day that he don't win. And as much as they're trying to railroad him, he's still gaining momentum. So I still think it's going to work out. I mean, we'll see how this all plays out. But as I said before, if Trump win or Cruz win, I'm leaving the country. Goodbye. I'm out. I'm not sitting there for that. I'm not going for it. And I think, well, basically my question is why, what is the purpose of them? What is the purpose of Cruz and Trump? What is the purpose of them having this type of mindset, pulling out all the races, all the xenophobes?
It's there, man.
What is their purpose? What is there to gain?
Good question.
Okay, the main question is, what is there to gain, not only for them, but what is it there to gain for the status quo, for the continuing the downfall?
Yeah.
What is
I got you. Here's a question. Here's the answer to your question. Thanks for the call, Bryce. So it actually goes back to the article I was just pulling up from the Boston Globe, discussing the number of Democrats in Pennsylvania who defected to the Republican Party. So since 2012, just in 2016 alone, 89,000 Democrats left and became Republicans, while 60,000 Republicans left and became Democratic. A net of 29,000 votes. That's enough to swing some districts, some counties. And there's a particular county where 7 times the number of Democrats left to become Republicans in Pennsylvania than the reverse order. So, and these counties have been gutted economically. They're rural. They're outside of the metropolitan area. And I'm answering your question the long way around. They're outside of the metropolitan areas, and they were gutted by international trade. They were gutted by globalization and outsourcing. And so that appeals. The article was written by Jim O'Sullivan in the Boston Globe. He was pointing out that these are your blue collar Democrats who are also socially conservative, and they have culturally conservative was his exact words, and they have this fear of America's downfall. This is a segment of the populace that the Democratic Party has for a very long time just completely dismissed. And to a certain extent, I can't say that I disagree or don't understand why, because when you cross over into social conservatism, that's where you get a lot of the intersection of bigotry and fear and xenophobia. You know, it's not just bigotry for the sake of bigotry for some people. It's bigotry because of fear, right? They have a underlying fear of something that they don't know and don't understand. They have an underlying fear of African Americans and Black people because they don't have any experiences with African Americans, or they just were, whatever their reason is. They have a fear of a xenophobia of Islam because of not only what they're being fed, but because from media, but also because of they just don't have personal one-to-one relationships with any. So you have a bigger problem in the Democratic circle because a lot of Democrats in this Rust Belt area are leaving and becoming Republicans in Philadelphia. And this trend, I'm sure you can see this trend we saw in Massachusetts before the primaries. Over 20,000 Democrats left the Democratic Party and became Republicans. And Donald Trump overwhelmingly won it. So why would they pull out the racism and the bigotry? Because it's I was listening to the Majority Report and Michael Brooks and why do I ever start trying to say names? I am so horrible with names. Rainier. Okay. I can't pronounce her last name. Kalik. So I'm sorry. I'll hit you in the DM. But anyway, they were discussing that that's its own type of identity politics. It's an identity politics that Republicans play, that hint, hint, wink, wink, Democrats also play right? It's an identity politics that they play to white blue collar workers that appeals to them because of their fear, and it appeals to them because they feel like they're being left out, when economically in a lot of cases they are being left out, and so they need someone to blame. The Republican Party is very good on giving them someone to blame, and the Democratic Party, by virtue of Bill Clinton in 1992 and Hillary Clinton today, are very capable in 2008, very specifically targeting white, hardworking, working hard Americans. Hillary Clinton, they're able to connect with those blue collar people and let them feel as though I identify with you and I can put these black people in their places. That's exactly what the Sister Soldier moment was. So while we are parsing out the differences between the parties, I want you to understand that the Democrats have benefited from that same blue collar working class white American that is economically disenfranchised. But instead of addressing the reasons they are economically disenfranchised, they both give them their own version of identity politics and play to their lowest common denominator. Anyway, I wanted to talk about GE a little bit more, but I think I've put off talking about Bill de Blasio long enough. Let me go to the footage of Bill de Blasio. Okay, sorry, I was just reading it up there. All right, so this is Bill de Blasio and Hillary Clinton chuck keying over, well, let me not describe it. Let me just play it. And yep, hang on. I guess I could show it as well. Bill de Blasio, Hillary Clinton showed up in New York, made some jokes, made her grand entrance. And after the grand entrance, this happened. Click, click, clack. Here we go. Okay, you guys want me to turn it up a little more? Let me play it again. All right, I'll play it again. They said they need a little more volume.
Hey, thanks for the endorsement. Took you long enough. Oh,
Sorry, Hillary. I was running on CP time.
That's not, I don't like jokes like that, Bill. That's not funny.
Cautious politician time. I've been there. Hey, Bill, do me a favor.
Yeah. Do me a favor, Bill, and never, ever, ever, ever fix your mouth to say some dumb shit like that ever again. That's number one. All right. Now that that's it, I want you to take a second and think what would have happened if Bernie Sanders was a part of that skit, because you realize this was a skit. One of my favorite television spokespeople, Joan Walsh. I just love her, guy, by golly. She decided to acknowledge that this was problematic, but that acknowledgement was laid only at the feet of Bill de Blasio. And it was in her tweet. She said that, this was a really awful joke by Bill de Blasio. However, this was a participatory skit. Hillary Clinton was well aware of this skit. These were lines that they practiced. They thought that this was going to be funny. They thought that this was going to be okay because you had your token black guy on the left-hand side giving the okay after expressing some feigned outrage, because he knew coming right after that would be Hillary Clinton's punchline, cautious politician. There is high, low, in between. There's no justification for this joke. Now, let me be completely fair. I don't really care as much about the joke as I do the hypocrisy of what would have happened if anybody else but Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton participated in some craziness like this. Let's start with the Republicans. Had a single Republican ever said something like this, they would be run out of town by everybody. Democrats, other Republicans, the black intelligentsia, black Twitter would have had their way if any Republican had ever said a joke like this or participated in a joke like this. That's number one. Number two, if Bernie Sanders been on the opposite side of Bill de Blasio for this joke, he too would have been run out of town. No questions. No way Bernie Sanders could have survived doing not even a microaggression, but let's just, for the sake of their terminology, let's just call it a microaggression. No way in the world Bernie Sanders could have survived that, because everyone would be calling for his head. Hell, Bernie Sanders can't even say the word ghetto without thousands of pages of ink being spilled in think pieces. Bernie Sanders can't even say the word Southern states without everyone feigning disgust over him marginalizing the Southern states that they don't really care about unless there's a swing state in the mix. So all of this outrage, again, the joke was lame. The joke was offensive. I don't really care about the joke as much as the hypocrisy that it represents, because I guarantee you, if we go down some Twitter timelines right now, people have 30 dozen tweets about how horrible it was for Bernie Sanders to say that Hillary Clinton's wins predominantly come in the South, and have said absolutely nothing, or if anything, one or two little pittance of tweets. And probably like Joan Walsh, our favorite, gosh darn golly, our favorite commentator who speaks authoritatively on the black experience in America, like her, they would have laid it at the feet of Bill de Blasio alone, when Hillary Clinton, to co-opt their language, participated in this aggression, participated in this act of oppression, participated in this act of violence against people of color. Hillary Clinton was complicit and a co-conspirator because it was a skit. It was not a save. Hillary Clinton didn't jump in there and save Bill de Blasio. She jumped in there and delivered the punchline. And somehow this is okay, so long as it comes from Hillary Clinton. But had it come from anybody else, including another Democrat, had it come from Bernie Sanders, if it had come from Martin O'Malley, had it come from any Republican, that would have been the end of their campaign. But Hillary Clinton, she went to Black Girls Rock, so she's a sister, and she's so down that she can do that and use a CP joke all in the same week. I'm not one who's easily offended. Obviously, if you guys ever see me on Twitter, you know much of nothing ever gets under my skin. The only thing that gets under my skin is hypocrisy and the inability of people to see their own hypocrisy. I can see my hypocrisy when I come across it, right? I can see my biases every single day. I know my tilt. I know my slant. I know I'm supporting the most progressive candidate in this election. The joke didn't bother me, mainly because I have the crudest, the most disgusting sense of humor of somebody who tries to be intelligent and enlightened and try to be a good guy. I have a very horrible sense of humor. I was gonna drink a lot of alcohol and be a comedian, a political comedian, and make some really horrible jokes. But I decided let's take a different route, right? I'm glad I did too. Yes, but it's not the joke. Because my sensibilities weren't so offended as much as I am offended by the hypocrisy of people who observe this and they feign outrage on one side while simultaneously allowing these acts of violence and microaggressions to exist from someone that they feel represents the best on racial equality and race identity. Never mind that just last week her husband shouted down Black Lives Matter, shouted down a black. Speaking of, one last thing, and then I'm gonna take this call, and then we're gonna. Oh, listen, I've done this entire show without doing a couple things. Number one, if you're here, subscribe. Spreaker, subscribe. YouTube, click that subscribe button down below. We want to hit 10,000 before the end of May. That's very important. I want you to like and share this video. If you really like what we're doing, I want you to go to patreon.com/the BPD show and become a patron. We have some very, very exciting things coming up. I can't even tell you them all, but let me just say there's some upgrades coming. I'm getting plugged into the matrix and I'm getting some upgrades. The first test of that will be tonight. Tonight after the show, there's a link that is going to be shared in your chat room for you to come over and join us while we test out some new software. So I want you to come over there. If you want to just hang out, we'll just do a question and answer. I'll answer any questions that you have. And I want you to come over there. And there's a lot of other upgrades. I can't even tell you about them. They're on the hush. So I want you to do that. I'm going to take this last caller, and I'm also going to share a tweet that really, now this, I'll tell you one thing that kind of ticked me off. No, pissed me off. I don't know. I'm different and I'm old school, and Nina Turner is my sister. No, she's not my real sister, people. But there's a guy on Twitter who, here we go. Let me share it to you. Seth Bringban, whatever. You can see that. Here's what Nina Turner said before she became Bernie's full-time attack dog. Now, and then he takes Nina Turner's tweet from back around the time of Netroots Nations last year, where she said Bernie Sanders and Martin O'Malley failed their Black Lives Matter test, which I think anyone with an objective eye would agree that he failed at Netroots Nation. I do not think he failed in Seattle. I think he failed at Netroots Nation, but he took that criticism. He took the critique. He listened to people like Nina Turner. Maybe he got a hold of one of my videos where I told him where he was wrong on that particular instance, and it made him better. That being aside, that's part two of this conversation. Part one is, this is another example. Seth is another example of the leverage and the latitude that is given to Hillary Clinton's group. They think that they are experts on intersectionality when they are amongst the number one transgressors. They are committing these microaggressions. They are committing these acts of oppression. They are participating in these acts of violence against people of color, referring to friend of the show and my sister from another Mr. Nina Turner as a dog. So Seth, how many do I get? I get one per show. I can get one. Seth, go fuck yourself and post it online. Fucker. All right. That's the most you're going to ever hear me. Now, if you want to know what makes me mad, there you go. But I'm not mad about it anymore. I'm good. Caller, you're live on the air. What's your name? Comment. You can be mad for a second. Just don't be mad a long time. Caller, what's your name? Comment and or question.
Hello?
Yep, this is you. You're live on the air.
Oh, okay. All right, my bad. I'm Rob, man. And
Rob, what's going on, my dude?
More of like, hey, how's it going, man? I just have a quick comment to make because I listen to your show and I listen to other various shows, and there's something that everybody's talking about as far as the gun legislation that Bernie Sanders voted against, and something that is not talked about. And I'm not saying it may not be your fault or you may not be aware.
I tell you what, Rob. Rob. Hang on, Rob. Let's do this. I'm going to keep you on hold because this sounds like a whole nother topic that I probably have to give some commentary on. I'm going to keep you on hold, and we're going to switch gears, and we're going to end this show, and then we're going to go over to the next YouTube channel, the next YouTube link, so we could test out some software, and I'll take your call over there. All right. So just stay on hold. I'm going to answer your question in about 3 minutes while we make this transition. All right. All right. Thanks so much. All right, folks. I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry, but you know, you can't really. It's the hypocrisy of it all. It's not just that he attacked and referred to Nina Turner as a dog. It is 90% that for him. The other 10% is that it's hypocritical. It's hypocritical for Team Hillary Clinton to allow this type of stuff to go on simultaneously. I mean, they are the ones who are committing these acts. They are the ones who are doing these things that are so offensive to people of color, not just African Americans, but people of color of every ethnicity and race, right? They are doing it while simultaneously benefiting from identity politics manipulations, using it against Bernie Sanders, making Bernie Sanders out to be this big villain, when in actuality, they are guilty of the exact thing they accuse him of. Sorry, folks. Hate to do it to you. I'm sorry I did the, sorry, not sorry. Sorry, sort of am. I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is. So click on that link. My producers, hopefully my producers have thrown that link in the chat room. And we're out of here. We're going over to the next room. See us over there. Ask me anything. Next door. All right.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listeners.
That was almost smooth. It was almost smooth. Next time.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
Crazy mother.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
All right, YouTube, before I move. Okay, so yes, the link is over there. So I am ending this, YouTube. If you want to hang out with us, click on that link in the chat room and come out and ask me anything while we test out this new software. We need about 2 minutes, maybe 3, to transition over. I'll see you in a few.